Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. Excuse me. नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भगवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, verse number 7. Vikramo bhurbhuva swascha kshemasya sharanasya cha sarvakama varasyapi haresh charana aspadam. Vikramaha, forward steps. Bhuvaha, of the lower and upper planets. Swaha, as well as of heaven. Cha, also. Shemasya, of protection of all that we have. Sharanasya, of fearlessness. Cha, also. Sarvakama, all that we need. Varasya, of all benedictions. Api, exactly. Harehe, of the Lord. Charanaha, the lotus feet. Aspadam, shelter. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus, the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear. Purport. For absolute protection from all sorts of fear, as well as for all our needs of life, we must take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord, not only in this planet, but also in all the upper, lower, and heavenly planets. This absolute dependence on the lotus feet of the Lord is called pure devotional service, and it is directly hinted at within this passage. No one should have any kind of doubt in this matter, nor should one be inclined to seek the help of any other demigods, because all of them are dependent on Him only. Everyone, except the Lord Himself, is dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Even the all-pervading super soul is also dependent on the supreme aspect of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuronmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Translation once again. Thus, the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear. Very, very important verse. Excuse me. So, from this verse and these previous verses also, Lord Brahma is giving us knowledge about the different parts of the body of the Supreme Lord. And here he's talking about Krishna's lotus feet. Now, what is the importance of the lotus feet? They serve as protection from all kinds of fear. All kinds of fear, whatever they may be. Most of course, most people, they are fearful of death because no one wants to die, right? So everyone is looking for protection. Though at heart we feel, oh, I can protect myself, but still protection is needed. So Prabhupada is explaining in the purport, if we want absolute protection from what? From all kinds of fear. And also protection for all our needs of life, whatever we may need. So if that is the case, what should we do? This verse is telling us we should take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And not only in this planet, But all planets, whether it is upper, lower, heavenly, whichever planet, and that is possible when we depend on Krishna completely. Because dependence on Krishna is essential. That will help us to get purified. And Prabhupada says that will lead to pure devotional service. You see, the aim, the goal should be to perform devotional service with all purity. And in this verse, it's very, very clear that there should be no doubt at all. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, for the doubting soul, there is peace neither in this life nor in the next. So if we doubt, then there's no solution. We need to have some faith based on the knowledge from the scriptures. So there is no need to seek help from demigods because the demigods also get their protection from Krishna. So whatever we ask the demigods to give us, it actually comes from Krishna. Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita that those who worship the demigods, they are actually worshiping me in a wrong way. That's an indirect worship. So depending on Krishna is necessary. And for that, one needs to have firm faith. And what does that mean? It means Krishna will protect me no matter what. That is the stage of pure devotional service, depending on Krishna completely, not thinking, I can do it, I got it, I've got it all squared away. No. We have example of Draupadi. We've heard about that in Srimad Bhagavatam. What did Draupadi do? She was being disrobed in the assembly of all those kings and all those people in that assembly. And she tried to save herself by holding on to her sari. Was she able to? No. Till she raised her hands up and cried out to Krishna to please help. She was depending on Krishna's protection. And that's when Krishna came to protect her and helped her not to get disrobed in that assembly. So that calling out sincerely is what works. She was depending on Krishna's protection. You see? So we should also get trained on how to depend on Krishna. And that will be absolute dependence. That comes only when we reach the stage of pure devotional service. Now, Rupa Goswami, he tells us that there is a formula on how to become pure in this material world. How to learn to depend on Krishna. How to get his mercy. And in Nectar of Devotion, he gives us the knowledge. He says, don't be attached to anything. Excuse me. Don't be attached to anything. Use everything for the service of Krishna. Yat karoshi, yad ashnashi, yad juhoshi, dadashi. We learn this in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever austerities you perform, whatever charity you give, you do it as an offering unto me. So when we accept everything in relation to Krishna, which means we're going to use it in his service, then we will be living in this material world without any attachment. And this today's verse is a very, very important verse because it's giving us knowledge about how to get protection from all kinds of fear, right? How to become fearless and how to become doubtless, so that there's no more doubt. You see, fear is there, fear of losing loved ones, fear of losing our jobs, fear of losing our family, fear of losing excuse me, our importance on social media, fear of so many things. We are so afraid. And because of that fear, we are not happy and peaceful. So the desire of the pure devotees is that they just want to satisfy Krishna. They want to fulfill desire of Krishna. It doesn't matter where they are, anywhere, whether in heavenly planets, hellish planets, spiritual world, wherever it may be. Their only desire is to serve Krishna. And their goal is to go back to Godhead. How can we go back to the spiritual world? What does it take to fulfill this mission? In third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 25, verse 43, it states there that those who take shelter of my lotus feet, Krishna says, they enter into my spiritual world. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport says one has to have full faith in Guru and Krishna. Then all the Vedic import of all the Vedic knowledge is automatically revealed to such a pure devotee. But if there is no knowledge, there is no renunciation, then how can one perform full devotional service? That's not possible. Then how can one enter into the spiritual world? To enter there, one has to surrender. We learn that in Bhagavad Gita, right? That until and unless we surrender, we cannot enter into the spiritual world. And surrender means following the instructions given to us in the Vedic scriptures. Those who are surrendered, those who are pure devotees, they are doubtless and fearless. And their entrance into spiritual world is guaranteed. And this applies to all living entities in all planets below the spiritual planets. So we need to become doubtless and we need to become fearless. We will become doubtless when we have faith in the scriptures. And when we take on that knowledge with that basic faith and make that faith very firm, then we'll become doubtless. Because doubts can be removed only with the help of knowledge. And fearlessness comes by the mercy of Krishna. Srila Prabhupada has given us the whole process. How to become fearless. Chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam. There are 9 processes of devotional service. And the first one is hearing, Shravanam. So our goal should be to come to a stage where we can develop fearlessness and we become doubt-free, you see? And that is possible when we have good association. Good association. Association, you see, we associate with different kinds of people in our daily lives, right? Whether it is at place of work, business, just social gatherings or whatever it may be. Even in temple, amongst devotees, we have different kind of association. There are 2 kinds. One association will lift us up, whereas the other association can bring us down. So we have to be very careful. Who do we associate with? Because association can change our consciousness. It can change our perceptions. It can change the way we think. So relationship with devotees can, especially advanced devotees, can help to lift us up in our spiritual lives and bring us closer to Krishna. Otherwise, it's very dangerous for our spiritual lives. So we need to choose our association very wisely. Then we can progress spiritually. Otherwise, we will just stay on a plateau. There will be no progress. And there's a possibility of fall down. So when we say choose our association wisely, how do we figure out if the association that I have is beneficial for me, especially amongst devotees. One way is to see when we associate, what are we talking about? Are we focused on different topics besides Krishna? Are we, because see, we are curious by nature, but we need to be focused. Are we wasting our time talking about politics and economy and this and that and stock market, etc.? Or are we talking about Srimad Bhagavatam? Are we talking about Krishna? You see? So it is very, very important to have the right association and be very, very vigilant in that aspect. Not take association very lightly, because the association, the relationship with the devotees will be very useful to us. Now, this verse, today's verse, is talking about serving the lotus feet of Krishna. So our question will be, how? What does it mean to serve the lotus feet? In fourth canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 24, verse 52, Lord Shiva, he is describing the bodily features of Supreme Lord Krishna. And he recommends that the devotees, they, always want to see the lotus feet of the Lord first. Even when we go to the temple to have darshan, to, see the beautiful deities, the proper way is to start seeing the Lord from his lotus feet and then gradually go up and then see his lotus face. So it is described that the first and the second cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam are called the lotus feet of the Lord. What does that mean? That means we should first study the first and second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam very thoroughly. Study these two cantos and not jump to the 10th canto to hear the pastimes of the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport that how one can come to that stage just by taking darshan of the lotus feet of the Lord, just by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, by following the process of Krishna consciousness, then one can become a Vaishnava, which means that devotee is fearless. Because when we serve the lotus feet of the Lord, then all our doubts, with the help of knowledge, and all our fears vanquish. So, if we want to progress spiritually, then we need to come to the stage of fearlessness. Now, what is fear? Big question, right? Fear is something that will happen in the future. Correct? It's something that has not yet happened. Whatever has happened yesterday, we are not afraid of that at all because it's done. It's already happened. We have no fear about it. There's nothing we can do about it. But the fear is always about the future. What is going to happen? So the fear is a projection of future events that possibly could happen. There is no guarantee it will happen, but possibly it can happen. Why are we so afraid of the future? I was listening to a story about two villagers. They were best friends. And they used to go to the field. They lived in the village, so they used to go to the field together. They would lay on the grass and look at the sky, watch the sky, and talk about the stars, etc. They were very happy being best friends. They did everything together. And then one of them asked, what is your plan for future? What do you want to do in future? So the other one said, well, I am thinking of making a garden and grow, I want to buy 5 acres of land and make a beautiful garden. So the other friend, immediately with fear in his eyes, he said, no, you cannot do that. He said, why not? He said, if you make a garden, I am planning to buy a buffalo, and that buffalo will come to your garden and eat everything. So, in other words, you are coming in between my plan. So, the friend said, well, if you want to buy a buffalo and you think your buffalo will come into my garden, I'll put a big wall around my garden so that your buffalo cannot come. They started arguing with each other about their future plan, which has not yet happened. You see? And when I put up the big wall, then this other friend says, well, buffaloes are very strong. And if your wall is very weak, the buffalo can break it. Then they started fighting. It led to physical fight. And then they started cursing each other. And their friendship was finished. How did it all happen? Plan for the future. Fear of the future. This may happen, that may happen. Then I will do this, then I will do that. What's the use? It does not help at all. Devotees are fully dependent on the mercy of the Lord. They just do their prescribed duties. As it is mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, you have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you're not entitled to the fruits of your activities. So this is a karma. So we take on the knowledge from Bhagavad Gita, we try and understand, we do our prescribed duty, but we do not hanker to enjoy the results of our activities. Devotees are fully dependent on the mercy of Krishna. For them, there is no place for fear at all, because they know Krishna will protect me. Now me bhaktya pranashyati. Krishna tells us, my devotee never perishes. This is how we get absolute protection from the Lord, by serving his lotus feet. What does it mean, serving his lotus feet? That doesn't mean we just offer flowers or something to the lotus feet of the Lord. No, it means following his instructions. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Satatam kirtayanto mam, always chanting my glories. When Krishna came 500 years ago as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he showed us how to be a devotee. He showed us what to chant. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is what he taught us. So when we chant the holy names attentively, very, very important. Not just chant, but chant attentively. Then there is purification of the heart. There's purification of the mind and intelligence and senses. And when we come to the stage of pure devotional service, then automatically that devotee becomes doubt-free and fearless. This is what it means, serving the lotus feet of the Lord. At that time, there is no place for fear, because there's full dependence. And to come to that stage, we of course need knowledge, but we need training from a bona fide spiritual master who can teach us based on our family situation, based on our personality. The spiritual master guides us. It's not that it's the same formula for everybody. Just like when we go to the doctor, there are so many patients there with different kinds of diseases and ailments. The doctor doesn't give the same medicine for all of them. No, it's based on each individual ailment. So the same applies for the spiritual doctor, which is the spiritual master. He guides us, he trains us, he gives us instructions. And when we follow those instructions, then there is success. When I was reading this purport of today's verse, I had to read it a couple of times to really understand. And then I even took suggestions from senior devotees, because there was one sentence which really caught my attention, and I was wondering, what does that mean? And that is that even the super soul is dependent on Krishna. Super soul, that is Krishna himself. See, one manifestation of Krishna is super soul within the heart of all living entities. And even that super soul is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what does that mean? It means, first of all, we need to understand everything comes from Krishna. In the 10th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mataha sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam. Krishna says, everything emanates from me. Everyone, everything, every living entity comes from Krishna. Aham bija pradaha pita. He is the seed-giving father of all living entities. And who is the Supreme Lord? Krishna. He has no beginning and he has no end. Now, it's very difficult to conceive that. Sometimes children ask the question, where does God come from? There's no beginning. He has always been there. He will always be there. Now, it's beyond our conception. So what does Prabhupada say? Anything that is beyond our conception, we should accept the word of authority. Tad vidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadyakshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshinaha. These pure souls, they are tattvadarshinaha. They have seen the truth. They have seen the Lord. And so when they are teaching us, they are helping us to prepare ourselves to go back to the spiritual world. It's beyond our conception, but we accept the word of authority with full faith. Now, the super soul, according to the purport, Srila Prabhupada says super soul is dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, super soul is not an eternal manifestation of the Lord. It's temporary manifestation. A nice example is right now Kumbh Mela is going on, right? The Maha Kumbh Mela is going on in India. Now, for this occasion, for the occasion of Kumbh Mela, the government actually puts up a temporary city for that Mela, temporary, right? And after the Mela is over, the government goes away, the whole thing is dismantled and everything is back to as it was before, right? In Adi Leela, chapter 2, text 10, example of temporary fair is given, like a fair, right? And the citizens, they come to the fair to enjoy. Now, the government officer comes there as a supervisor, and this government officer has full power, identical with the government. And so he sets it up, supervises, but when the fair is over, there is no need for that officer, right? No need for such officer. So when we come to this material world to enjoy this material world like in a fair, then Krishna deputes himself as super soul to supervise. You see? And then when this material world is destroyed or it's no longer there, then there is no need for the super soul. So it's temporary. So, but when super soul is manifested, it has all the power of Krishna. So super soul is also dependent on the Supreme Lord. So when the material world ends, there is no need for super soul. Similarly, when the Kumbh Mela is over, then there's no need for that temporary city. There's no need for officers over there who are assigned to supervise. You see? So it's important to understand each and every word of the purport and, of course, the verse. Why are the purports given to us? Because we cannot really understand just the verse by itself. And Srila Prabhupada, who comes down in strict disciplic succession, right? Evam parampara praptam. Krishna tells Arjuna that this spiritual knowledge, spiritual science should be received in strict disciplic succession. And that's what Srila Prabhupada is doing, giving us the knowledge that he has received from his Guru. And the whole parampara goes all the way to Supreme Lord Krishna. So we are very, very fortunate that we have access to these translations and purports of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so many other books that Srila Prabhupada has given us. So now that we have this golden opportunity to have access to all this knowledge, we should take it up very seriously. Excuse me. Because this human form of life is very rare. We don't know if in the next life we will be human beings. We could be in any of one of the 8.4 million species of life. There's no guarantee. And if we even get a human form of life, say the next birth is in the human form, there's no guarantee that we will have access to this knowledge. There's no guarantee that someone will give us a book, maybe a Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, or someone will explain to us about, spirituality. There is no guarantee. Well, even if we come across someone who's kind enough, compassionate enough to give us access to this knowledge, there's no guarantee we'll take it up. Even if we take it up, there's no guarantee we'll be serious on that path. You see? So just like they say, Kal kare so aaj kare so ab. Whatever you're planning to do tomorrow, do it today. Whatever you're planning to do today, do it now. So now is the time for us to really appreciate this treasure house of knowledge that we have, which is Srimad Bhagavatam, that we are, studying every day, understanding, and trying to put it into practice. So if we become serious and sincere on this path of Krishna consciousness, then we will get the mercy of Krishna. So our goal should be to be fully dependent on the lotus feet of Krishna. Serve his lotus feet. Serving his lotus feet means serving the instructions of Guru and Krishna. Maybe we can write, open up our diary and write there, what are the things we do on a daily basis? Are they related to Krishna? Are they helping us progress spiritually? What are the things that we are doing that we can do without, we can avoid, so that we can spend more time understanding and putting them into practice? You see? That will help us to achieve our goal, to come to the stage of pure devotional service. What is pure? Pure means no mixture. Anya abhilashita shunyam, jnana karma nam. It has to be not mixed with anything, unalloyed devotional service. No mixture of jnana, karma, or whatever it may be. No. Absolute pure devotional service. So for us, we are very fortunate. We have got this whole treasure house of knowledge given to us on a golden platter. All we need to do is take it up seriously and not waste this rare human form of life. The super soul is there within our hearts. He's there to guide us. He's witnessing everything that we do. He's ready to help us, provided we want his help. He's not going to force himself on us. He can, but he will not, because he's given us that minute independence to decide which path do we want to take. Do we want to really come to the stage of pure devotional service? Do we want to be dependent on the mercy of the Lord? Do we want protection, complete, absolute protection from the Lord? If we have that desire, then Krishna from within will guide us on the right path, will help us. Just like children, nowadays children, they don't like, interference of the parents. Parents are there to help. Parents are there to guide. But the children have to surrender to the parents, have to ask for help, have to have a desire. Then the parents will be very happy to help. Krishna is our Supreme Father. He says, Aham Bija Pradhapita, I am the seed giving father of all living entities, Sarva Yonishu, all living species, all different species. So he's ready to help us as a Supreme Father, provided we want his help. So the summary of today's verse is absolute dependence on Krishna. How? By serving his lotus feet. That is the only way. There is no other way. We may try to protect ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that we should not take steps to protect ourselves. It shouldn't be that I am walking on the road and here one person comes, to harm me, to kill me or whatever. I cannot just stand there and say, oh, I am fully dependent on Krishna, so let Krishna come and protect. No, we have to do what it takes to protect ourselves, our body and soul together. But consciousness wise, we must understand that absolute protection comes from Krishna. Mare Krishna rakhe Krishna mare ke. Whomsoever Krishna wants to protect, no one can annihilate. And whomsoever Krishna wants to annihilate, no one can protect. So ultimate authority is Krishna. But we need to have that, come to that state of consciousness where we are fully dependent on the mercy of the Lord. So the verse once again, thus the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for all that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear. So I'm going to end here. If anyone has any questions.